Lucy, many thanks for joining us. Welcome to GRTS News in detail. Now, the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow and entourage has held meetings in Jabakunda and Farafenye in the North Bank region as the Meet the People tour continues. Now, as we hear in this report by Louis Mendy, the people of the area have pledged their support to the Gambian leader and his MPP party ahead of the December polls.
It was Tuesday and day 2 of the Meet the People tour, and President Barrow and his cabinet ministers began the day with a visit to a poultry farm in Daslami in Lower Nyomi district in the North Bank region. The support to the differently able, called the Agriculture Value Chain Development Project, is transforming the lives of the beneficiaries in this part of the provincial Gambia. Dr. Famara Buli Sanyang is the project coordinator.
You cannot compare any other group to this differently able people because they are more vulnerable. So when they applied for this, it was actually a priority to focus on them. Now we provided them with 1,000 birds, provided all the feed and medication, all the equipment, and we also provided the facility. And now they are benefiting a lot from it.
Pleased with the impact of the project, President Barrow personally donated $100,000 to strengthen its sustainability and encourage the beneficiaries to continue to take ownership of the life-changing initiative. Driving further, President Barrow and the entourage acknowledge a waiting crowd in the North Bank region administrative town of Kerewan, as residents, including Mamadou Keita, demonstrated their loyalty to him and the National People's Party, further manifesting it with the establishment of an MPP political bureau strategic in location for even the passerbys to see. Next up was a site visit to the farms in Jabakunda in central Badibu, where the president was encouraged by the work of large-scale farmer Alaji Jan, the chief of central Badibu. Barrow used the opportunity to implore on Gambians to till the soil for national food security, pledging his readiness to make farming more rewarding to the agrarian community, already demonstrated by the dozens of tractors, power tillers, milling machines, and other farm implements he gave to farmers across the country.
Special seno me along ko ka seno ke ko business o yaro ni seno muta business o do isi soto ke noji.
Meanwhile, Chief Alaji Jan lauded President Barrow for the fertilizer he donated to farmers this year, regarded as the best in the history of this country. John Mendy is the Agri Director for the North Bank region.
The way things are going, definitely we are expecting a bumper harvest. The rain is good, and farmers are really working hard in their fields, as you can see right now. Yeah.
The site visit culminated into 2 massive political rallies in Jabakunda and Farafenye, graced by thousands of the NPP party faithful and well-wishers. Meet the People tour is a constitutional required engagement which availed the president and his cabinet ministers the opportunity to meet and dialogue with Gambians on the impact of the government policies and programs, and in the North Bank region it wasn't amiss, as the people of the area praised President Barrow for the sustainable support to agriculture, infrastructure, education, and health. Their morals were further boosted when President Barrow donated 10 ambulances to the region for speed.
Many there. Now to some legislative matters, because members of the National Assembly have engaged the Minister of Petroleum and Energy during questions and answer session on the country's electricity expansion project before the Speaker of the House adjourned the sittings until further notice. Aissatou Jata Gassama was at the legislative chambers in Banjul and filed in this report.
In responding to the deputy's questions, The minister provided the assembly with the names of communities listed to benefit from the second phase of the rural electrification project.
Honorable Speaker, there are concrete plans to electrify Tumana constituency under the GAM project, the Gambia Electricity Restoration and Modernization Project, Backbone Phase 2, which is being tendered. Already, the following communities have identified to benefit from this project. This includes Sendebu, Njai, Tenkoli, Saregela, Madina Samako, Sareyoro, Tintinjo, Kisikisi, Kulkule, Dandu, Sanunding, Keneba, Kulinto, Sare Henry, Pirai, Ndimba, Senubu, Bayas Ndugu, Tambasansang, and Chamoy.
The minister said as part of their plans, 600 communities will benefit from the electricity project with 24 hours energy supply.
Gambia Electricity Restoration and Modernization Project GAM is co-financed by the World Bank, EU, and the component of the access component is $46 million. We also have the ECOWAS Regional Access Project, ECORIP. We have done the surveys. We've got funding from electrification projects, and we are on procurement now. So some contracts have already been signed, and one of the areas, even launched some projects already. You know, the Diabugu, Lamenko Diabugu has been launched, and so other projects have been launched. So we have already projects that we have given a master list. We have got funding for those ones. So now we have got the funding. We are on procurement. So it's just after procurement implementation. So that's how far we are gone. But Honorable, maybe to make this clear, when I say we are on procurement, we are not putting on poles now. You don't see poles being erected now, because if you are on procurement, and after that, the companies will mobilize. You know, the materials will be manufactured, shipped, and then we start work.
The nominated member, Honorable Yasin, represented the differently abled and asked the minister about its role in regulating domestic wiring and home installations amid the spark of fire outbreaks.
One thing, NAMEC has a role to bring electricity to the doorstep. But when you come to internal wiring, that's surely the matter for the person applicant. So this is a matter of standards. One standard in terms of the wires, and that has to do with the standard of where that is coming in, which is not under the control of my ministry or NAMEC, so not yet. It's good that you bring it up, but it's also our concern. Because sometimes you can keep burning to the utility when actually it's not responsible. Most of the fires are caused by that kind of problems, when actually is poor wiring. But that is mainly the people who are building their houses, and they go for cheap labor, cheap material. So first is how to control those cheap materials to come into the country, and then the type of, probably also my view is that to look at the people who are contractors who are actually doing this wiring to be certified contractors.
The energy minister urged that the provision of electricity to every Gambian is their key priority. But his ministry will also engage necessary structures to mitigate the issue across household levels. Deputies also questioned the type of poles to be used in the rural electrification project. Minister Sanyon said the poles for use are yet to be decided, but was quick to add that concrete and iron are both good for the project. For the news, I am Aissatou Jata.
Moving on, the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, is on a walking visit in the Gambia ahead of the December polls. In an exclusive interview with the top diplomat, Mr. Chambers disclosed that he is in the country with his team to work with all political parties, civil servants and civil societies as well as stakeholders in order to develop a code of conduct that will be signed by all parties to ensure a peaceful, credible and transparent election. Here's an excerpt.
The auspices of the international idea, the main objective of the work we are engaged in is to have the political parties, civil society, media, work out a code of conduct that will then be signed by the candidates for the presidential elections, which we will know hopefully by early November. It is crucially important that the elections of 4th December are peaceful. For that to happen, we need all of us as Gambian stakeholders, international partners, to work and ensure that we create an environment, an atmosphere which will be conducive to peace. The Gambia is known as a peaceful country. Gambian people are known for their civility. And with this coming elections, the challenge is huge. This will be the first elections in the new democratic dispensation. Gambia cannot do worse than it performed in 2016. And let us all face it, in spite of the great difficulties at the time, the IEA delivered credible elections which led to the change of regime. Under the new dispensation, we have been working with the government, political parties, leaders of political parties, major civil society organizations, and the media. We have just this evening had discussions, consultations with the Honorable Attorney General, with the Honorable Minister of Information, and we have been assured once again of the determination of government to do its utmost to carry out its responsibilities to ensure that the facilities are there to ensure peaceful elections. Similarly, from the major political leaders that we have met, we have received their engagement, their commitment to also ensure that the peace that the Gambia is enjoying now is not disturbed, and that at the end of the day, what every active player should have in mind, that the ultimate winner will be Gambia, the Gambia, a peaceful, stable, prosperous Gambia will be in the benefit of all Gambians, and therefore nothing should be done that could undermine the peace and the stability of the country. The heart of the discussions we had with the Honorable Minister and the PS Minister of Information, and they have assured us of the importance of ensuring that the media and journalists as a whole play a professional, objective, and unbiased role in ensuring that the peaceful atmosphere that we want is there. And they should do that by correct reportage, by basing their reports on facts, verifiable facts, and also by giving all sides equal opportunity to be heard. The Honorable Minister has informed us that at the appropriate time, the IEA will come out with a calendar for equal opportunity and time for candidates, and that this calendar will be binding on state media. Certainly, the ministry has no intention whatsoever to alter that, so they will respect this right of the IEA to define the calendar for all candidates so that all candidates will be given equal access. I have, of course, pointed out that this should apply not just with state media, but in fact we hope that private media will equally understand the importance of giving all candidates a chance to be heard so that they can deliver their messages to the Gambian people. We want this to be a campaign based on policies, campaign of issues, not campaign where sentiments will be inflamed. Let's avoid hate speech and incitement of ethnic or religious biases. Let's have a campaign which will be civil and issue-oriented.
The United Nations Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, talking to GRTS by Ibrahim Cham there. Away from that, new sets of motorbikes are set to replace an old fleet being used by community health workers in the North Bank region. The development came courtesy of Riders for Health, the Gambia, an organization, or as the organization completed training for the riders of the motorbikes before officially handing the bikes to the Ministry of Health. Isa Tuketa reports on the training and a partnership deal between the Ministry and Riders for Health.
That sound of a motorbike in motion by riders, motoring for health purposes. It is what these health workers do every day, riding to save lives and deliver healthcare services as community health workers, the tutelage of the Riders for Health. The institution's long partnership with the Minister of Health in 2002 led to significant improvements in decentralizing health service delivery.
Health workers they use transport to go on outreach to serve those communities. That's why that role is very important. That link between the remote village or remote villager in the community and health service is the transport. Whether it's an ambulance or outreach vehicle, trekking vehicle, that's the link. We help support that link to ensure it remains open and strong.
Riders for Health is totally focused on mobility-centered health delivery, with the institution specializing in supplying, managing and maintenance of vehicles for health-focused organizations in African countries. The highly distinctive organization has since inception given utmost attention to improving access to Medicare, especially across local communities, working in partnership with the Health Ministry. The contractual agreement signed to bring in these 30 motorbikes is part of a program to replace a fleet that has already completed its lifespan.
We weigh them and we say if the vehicle, as long as it is viable to run, we maintain it. If it is too old to run, we say change it. So it could be 5 years, it could be by kilometers, depends on how the vehicle is maintained. And in our agreement, there are vehicles which we purchased ourselves and leased to the Ministry of Health. Those are under a program called Transport Asset Management.
This exercise precedes the official handing over of the motorbikes to the Ministry of Health, which is assigning them to community health workers to ease their work.
Sanding area, how to ride in the sun, and how to use the clutch within the sun, and then the balancing too. Yeah, these are the early area we should train them. We should train them both traffic and then tag road, like off-road riding too. Yes, we need to train them both.
These riders are relied on to ensure timely and adequate Medicare reaches communities. The riders conduct vital services like the transportation of samples and test results from remote communities whilst delivering community health care. These motorcycles are well suited for delivering health care in rural Gambia, while some roads are in poor condition and difficult to navigate.
Bikes, there have been a lot of bikes coming, but because of the service that was needed was not provided. That was why the bike does not last long. They spoil very easily, and the service that riders is providing at the moment, they have not been providing those services before.
The management of the organization's demands and supply chain remains central.
You know, we train riders and drivers. That's our expertise. We train them to minimize accidents and casualties. We train them to prevent accidents. Our whole training is geared towards prevention, and prevention. Preventing accidents, driving carefully, riding carefully. And they also give them, as you may have observed, the riders have what they call, riding gear. Helmets, trousers, boots, gloves. They have those things. If something happens, they have to protect their lives.
As the Riders for Health inches closer to celebrating 2 decades of service, it's more determined than ever
to help government through the Health Ministry to deliver health care to hard-to-reach communities in the Gambia.
A clear picture of near perfection riders on bike. In their quest to save lives, their safety becomes a prerequisite for the riders for health as they reach the remotest parts of rural Gambia. For GRTS News, I am Aissatou Keita.
Now, in another development, comprehensive and inclusive educational policies and programs have direct bearing on the outcome of teaching and learning in schools. Stakeholders in the education sector recently converged in Fonyi for a review of the 2016-2030 policy document. Khadija Bokum has the details in this report.
The education policy of 2016 to 2030 is the working guide for the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, which envisage education for all children in the Gambia. Thus, the need to identify the gaps in the policy in order to enhance an inclusive education package with input from all stakeholders. The retreat by IFANET, one of the partners in education, discussed key elements in significantly contributing towards the effectiveness of the formulated education policy. Speaking at the event, the national coordinator of IFANET, Keba Umar Chajusi, stressed the importance of promoting affordable and accessible education for all.
We are together in the business of education, and we believe together we can make a difference. We owe it to the Gambian children. The policies that are being developed are developed to better the life and livelihood of our Gambian children. The education policy 2016-2030 is looking at inclusive, equitable, inclusive, equitable, and quality education for all. And the third target is 2030, and we all know we are very close to 2030. How far are we to achieving the policy pronouncement? What are some of the gaps? We need to know. What do we need to do differently? We also need to know.
The Deputy General Secretary of the Gambia Teachers Union, Issa Sow, calls for concerted efforts by stakeholders in the implementation of the policy in integrating the Gambia into the global effort to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal in education.
As civil society, we are supposed to serve as a watchdog, and meaning we need to pay attention on the implementation strategies to see as to whether what has been decided or suggested or pronounced is actually being looked at and as required by the roadmap, which is the education sector plan. And anecdotally, we realized that there are a lot of gaps, and essentially that is why the stakeholders were invited to come around and then interact with the document and interrogate it, as it were, to make sure that those gaps are teased out and a policy brief is made and then shared with the management of the ministry for necessary actions.
Lamin Fatajo of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education says the review process would give stakeholders the opportunity to improve the document.
These policies cannot be easily implemented without coming up with strategies that would highlight key result areas, results that would be directed to the policy priorities. And these result areas are what dictates the plans that individual directorates, units, and individuals would do, so that we can capture emergent issues. We can also look at where we have our failures, where we have shortcomings, and that review would also redirect the policy towards achieving the policy objectives at the end of the policy period.
Providing an in-depth analysis on the concept of education policy implementation, IFANET and stakeholders hold a two-day retreat today at Fonyi in order to review the education policies and programs 2016 to 2030 to ensure coherent education in all sectors in the Gambia, as the education system has been faced with so many challenges in the past years. This is to ensure access and equity among all sectors in the Gambia in terms of education. Reporting for GRTS News, Khadija Bokum.
Well, time now to take our first break. When we return, we'll look at news from beyond our borders. Do stay. Welcome back. Now, Guinea's military junta, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, is holding talks with foreign diplomats today. The talks at the presidential palace in Conakry were focused on the formation of a new government and roadmap towards a civilian rule. The junta is also expected to hold a separate meeting with representatives of civil society and Guineans in the diaspora. These consultations are part of a four-day meeting about the West African nations' future. The dialogue kicked off on Tuesday with the military leaders meeting with the officials from the party of the opposition leader, Selou Dalien Diallo. While since September 1st, news in Guinea has been dominated by the military coup that overthrew President Alpha Condé. Details in the CGTN report.
Sunday, September 5. Another coup in Africa was unfolding in Guinea. President Alpha Condé had been deposed and arrested by a group of soldiers. They were led by Lieutenant Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. For one local media group, it was time to reorganize its programming and position itself to inform its local audience on the emerging situation.
As soon as we learned they were shooting in the vicinity of the presidential palace, we put a team on alert. We were receiving conflicting information initially about the president. Some people said he was doing very well, while others said he was already captured. Our teams later hit the streets to cover the celebrations.
Radio station FIM commands a respectable number of listeners in Guinea. As the reality of the coup came to the fore, the editorial team also took the necessary steps to capture the moment.
Our teams are always on the alert for the current situation, but beyond that, we have an editorial board that functions in the normal way as in all media houses. We meet every morning and discuss the news. Depending on the topic selected, we deploy our reporters in the field. We also have a watchdog team that goes around to other media outlets to follow what's happening in other places.
In Guinea, the relationship between the media and military has always been tense when covering sensitive events. However, things were different in this case.
Bon, c'était très facile. Moi, j'ai reçu un coup d'appel très tôt le matin.
While on my way to Conakry, I received a video in which the special forces announced that they had taken power. Afterwards, I received images of President Alpha Condé on WhatsApp. But how could I verify this information as a journalist? I called everywhere and someone gave me Colonel Doumbouya's number, which I tried to reach in vain. So I decided to leave him a message via WhatsApp, and he called me back later and confirmed that he is the new president.
We're not encountering any challenges on the ground. From the first day of the coup, we deployed reporters who gave us the first reactions to the event. It must be said that the current junta is different from the one we knew in 2008. It is less talkative, very organized.
The media in Guinea say they are counting on the good collaboration of the junta to be able to relay developments in the country. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Let's turn to news from South Sudan now, where more than 20 soldiers have been killed in clashes between forces loyal to South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar and the splinter group in the northern part of the country. Riek Machar's force split into two last month when a group of generals claimed to have ousted him. Details in this CGTN report by Patrick Oyet.
In Magenis in Upper Nile State began on Sunday. Each side is accusing the other of starting the violence. Both groups are vowing to continue fighting because each of them claims to be fighting in self-defense. The violence is threatening to derail the implementation of a peace deal signed 3 years ago. It is that peace deal that brought opposition leader Riek Machar as vice president in the current government, the East African regional body that brokered the 2018 peace agreement. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, or IGAD, says it is concerned about the clashes. IGAD is urging the rivaling groups to resolve their differences by dialogue. Riek Machar's forces split into two last month when a group of generals claimed to have removed him as head of the army and party. Mr. Machar called the move by the generals illegal. Violence is now resulting from the disagreement. Patrick Poyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
And before we end this newscast, a reminder of the day's top stories. The communities of Njabakunda and Farafenye have pledged their support to President Adama Barrow and the National People's Party ahead of the December polls as he continues his Meet the People tour in the North Bank region. Deputies at the National Assembly have been engaging the Petroleum and Energy Minister on the country's electricity expansion project during question and answer session. The Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, has visited the Gambia ahead of the December polls. Away from home, Guinea's military junta Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya has held talks with foreign diplomats on the formation of a new government and roadmap towards a civilian rule. And more than 20 soldiers have been killed during clashes between forces loyal to South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar and splinter group in the northern part of the country. Well, that does it in today's edition of GRTS News. From myself and the entire news team, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Join us again tomorrow for more news. Until then, good evening.
Baro manazi